Hola, culés. We're back with another episode of Fullback. And boy, we have some good stories that are coming out this week. We had the financial results come out, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we had that incredible defeat against PSG and Sevilla. But before I go further, Dom, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, it's been a good week. There are some positive things to talk about as well. Obviously, the finances are one of them. The defeats to PSG and Sevilla, never good for Barca, obviously, but it's the manner of defeat and the manner in which we were exploited that we want to talk about. The team is traveling to the United States for a game, for an away game, obviously. So there's a lot of controversy around that. And then we'll finish off with Dani Olmo,
All right. So before we dive in, guys, just a reminder that if you enjoy the podcast, if you've been following with us, right, just subscribe. If you're listening, it helps us a lot. Click that bell button and check out our blog at your website. We are covering a ton of stories, and we have also expanded the kind of stories that we are doing, so it'll be good. And without further ado, let's just jump in. So let's talk money. On October 7th, I think, Barcelona released their financial result. They haven't really released the downloadable document out there, but I would love to read that. They send out a press release. And TLDR, ballpark, what it looks like is that Barca, for the second year running, have posted a profit of 2 million euros. But again, it went into a loss of 15 million or 17 million because UEFA slapped them with a fine of 50 million because of financial fair play concerns and what have you. So it is a loss if you consider the UEFA, and you have to consider the UEFA fine. But apart from that, it was a $2 million profit.
Yeah, I know. Just 2 million sounds such a minuscule figure for a club of Barca's size. But we had to put this into context that because we were operating on a loss for so long, we couldn't register players. We had players leaving because of money issues and contract issues. But now it seems like we're moving in the right direction. So you can dislike Laporta. You can dislike the way that he's a politician or a businessman. But I feel like at this point in time, we are finally moving towards healthy financial environment. Would you call it that way?
Let's look at the key numbers. Barca closed the year about 994 million euros. This while playing at Montjuic. This was not now. Even with that, they increased stadium revenue. Obviously, it happened because Flick's team had a phenomenal season, so people came and there was excitement. But 994, that's almost €1 billion in revenue. Yeah. And that is something that you've got to talk about, given the state of the team, and we all know what the team is like. Then, on top of that, they have reduced the short-term debt. Now, Barca has a lot of debt, all right? This is the operational debt. There is also a $1.5 million debt on us by Barca and the stadium. We'll keep them aside because that is not necessarily considered as debt. They've been redistributed as bonds. But if you look at the debt, right, they have brought it down by about 90 million to about 469 million, which is manageable. The wage salary is now 56% of the revenue, which is within UEFA and FIFA's 70% rule. They have brought the negative equity. Barca was at a negative equity of minus $475 million. We all have our criticism of the Porta and the board and everything else, right? But you cannot take away the magnitude of this transformation in less than 3 years. It's about 3 years, right? So if you look at the magnanimity of what we had, and Messi had to leave, and we had no players, it was terrible. And you were there, and we were there, and we went through that time together. But that was from there to here. Yes, we still have problems with registering, and that's a pain for all of us. And yes, we struggle with so many other things like getting the right kind of players. But this is, as you said, Dom, a recovery in the right direction.
Oh, that's good. That's good to hear. And this, what you mentioned, Dev, if you had sold Barca a couple of years ago, you would all be operating on a loss. That's fascinating to me. How can a club of Barca's size, imagine owning Barcelona, guys. Imagine owning Barcelona and then you decide, okay, I want a big exit. I want to live the rest of my life comfortably. You sell Barca and they come knocking on your door. Hey, you're almost $400 million. That is insane. But one other thing you mentioned, Dev, was the performance of the team. I think that's such a driving factor in merchandise, in revenue, in getting sponsorship deals. And that Nike deal was massive for us, right? Because that's what brought in such good money, and it put the club on the way upwards in terms of financial health, right? We are now projecting, okay, next year, we'll cross the $1 billion mark, and then we will hopefully get to a point where, okay, we have the money to, first of all, retain our players, but then potentially, and we can only dream of that, maybe go into the market and buy the players that we need specifically, or that Flick needs specifically.
Sooner or later it's going to happen. Whether it's next season or not, we don't know. And again, to your point, think about it. Sponsorships went about 259 million euros, correct?
Yeah.
But Of all of that, merchandising was 170 million euros, which is 55% up year on year. So you remember the jerseys and the shoes and everything that the last year's jersey was amazing. It just sold out. Even this year's jersey has been amazing, and there was a record when they just launched it. So that's working. The young team and the revamp that they have done is working. Flick's brand of football is working. People are back to the streets. And I want to go to some of the other numbers that we generally don't talk about. Here, Barca is now on YouTube, the largest followed football club in the world. 9.7 million people watch the Gamper Trophy. Gamper at the Estadi. So they've clearly cracked the code on that, right? The global expansion that they're doing, and we'll talk about that too with the game in Miami. Plus, they increased matchday revenue by 39 million euros playing at the Montjuic.
Yeah, and that should all increase with the Camp Nou, right? As we get to the Camp Nou, that should skyrocket, right? It should get so much bigger. And that's what the club wants. That's what they were pushing the return to the Camp Nou so much, because the Camp Nou itself is a big merchandising tool. We said, okay, the Montjuic has been good for us, and it will be good for us until we reach the Camp Nou again. But once we return home, that would not only financially, but also performance-wise, you would imagine that Barca would feel more comfortable. And as we said, performances will fuel finances, and finances will fuel performances. So it's a good circle to be in.
It's the circle that Laporta keep talking about. That's why he wanted to break the bank, get the levers, get the team, all of that stuff. Looking forward, next year, as Dom said, Barca is projecting 1.75 million euros in revenue, of which 50 million will come additional, incremental, will come from Camp Nou alone. Now, we all know we haven't got back to Camp Nou yet. We are still playing at Montjuic and at the Estadi. There are questions around when we can reach, but it just goes to show that we are in the right direction. Sooner or later, we are going to get that occupancy. Sooner or later, the team is going to start play. And when you have 105,000 people in a fully sold out Camp Nou watching a Clásico or a European night, you can imagine to which heights this club can. This here has a foundation for Flick to actually build upon, because he's got the baseline sorted out. If the core of the team is there, you get a couple of good strikers, forwards, wingers, and left back. I think we're in a good position to be among Europe's elite once again.
Especially looking at the squad and how young it is and where it can go from where we are, which kind of brings us to the next topic there, and that the defeat in Sevilla, right? Because we did not really expect that to happen, but at the same time, looking at how we faced PSG and how we actually got exposed by PSG, and then Sevilla's coach coming out and saying, okay, we have specifically prepared for this type of the game because we knew what we wanted to do, we knew what we wanted to target, and we did it brilliantly. And there's a lot of things to talk about here because the result could have been different. And Barcelona even could have maybe scrapped a win out of this 4-1 loss, which sounds a bit incredible, but I think it's still true. But it would just have papered over the cracks, I think. I think there are things here, Dev, that need to be addressed, both by us today, but also by Flick in general. Because if we want to reach the heights that you've been talking about just now, the team actually competing against the elite's finest, these things would need to be addressed sooner rather than later.
And Dom has gone into lengths just last week doing a masterclass around what Flick's highline means and the double-edged sword that it carries. And we have to talk about the highline if you have to talk about the Sevilla loss, right? So we all know Barca play the highline. But that highline works when everybody is in cohesion, conjunction, and playing as a unit. So your forwards have to press, and that starts the virtuous cycle. In that game, we neither pressed, we neither had a defense, we neither tracked back. So most of the time, Sevilla were just content to sit back in a mid-block, hit us on the counter, and then push us into those transitions, which we hate. And given that our backline is right now, currently, no shade on anyone, but it's mostly tech, it's Ronald Araujo and Gerard Martin. And while they're incredibly good in what they do, they're not really the play out from the back kind of the team. And now when you don't have that, and you don't have a pressing system up front, because neither Marcus Rashford nor Lewandowski, neither Lamine Yamal that day because he was not well, or Ferran or Olmo actually press. So now if nobody in that forward line is pressing, which is what, let's say, a Gavi or a Fermin or a Rafinha bring, the whole system breaks down.
It does, and it's important to highlight that because you can't have the high line, the suicidal high line without the high. And Kubarsi was actually the one who called out his teammates. Now, rightfully enough, we can all go into that. But it is true, though. right? Because the forwards have to be the first defenders in a system like Flicks, right? Because if you do have a high line, but you don't have the high press, you're just letting the opponent have all the time and space in the world to actually hit you on the counter, hit behind your high line, and expose all of that space that is obviously going to be there with the high line. So you can't have one without the other. And it's in that moment that Flick has to decide, okay, I either need to go all the way into the one extreme or maybe ease off and go a bit into the other. Because otherwise, you get the exact same thing that Xavi faced, and that was the high line with no press, and we were easily exposed. Again, no shade on Xavi because he did some good things, but that was one of the major flaws that made the system crumble under him. Now, Flick needs to be careful that he doesn't fall into the same trap that.
Yeah, and last year, I was looking at a stat, Koundé. He had 340 defensive duels last season, and he was good. He was impeccable. He played 104 games, and you know it. But this worked because Pedri, Lamine, they were constantly pressing, tracking back, and that helped Koundé. When that is missing, if you remember the second goal against Sevilla, we lost possession in a meaningless manner. And then you had Koundé, which had like acres of space to cover, and he could not. And Vargas just swept it in, and that was it. Romero scored almost a tap-in, basically. That situation should never have come up. I'm sure the players understand this as well, but somehow physically, I feel the players are not up to it. Half the team is in the sick bay. Half the team that is there do not look capable of pressing. And without that, it is not going to work.
No, it's not going to work because and we talked about this as well, guys, in the Masterclass videos. Do check it out on YouTube or our blog. This system, this defensive system in particular, is good when it works, but it only works when it's executed on perfection. It has to be inch perfect in both timing and game reading, and also physically needs to be perfect. Because if you are 1 or 2 seconds late, which in real time looks like nothing, right? But on the football pitch, when the ball is being circulated very quickly, 2 seconds is the difference between you recovering position up high and you conceding a goal on the counter, right? And this kept happening. Our players were just a second or two too late, and it was a domino effect because one player is late, that means the other player is late, the third player is late, and that destroys the whole system. Now, the question is, should a system be based on perfection in the first place then? Can we expect perfection 90 minutes in a game 2 or 3 times a week throughout the whole season?
I'm not a coach, so I'm not Hansi Flick, nowhere close to him. I'll keep that in mind. But I do think that in high stakes game, especially when your team is in the condition that it is, yes, you have a plan A. But I do think at times that there needs to be a plan B when things are not working and things, you don't have the personnel to make it work. Yes, you have subs sitting in who can execute your vision, fine. But if you don't have them, drop a little deep, right? Play it out a little bit, right? Slow the tempo of the game. There's nothing wrong in that. But I think if you continue doing this, if Barca play the way they play with Sevilla against Madrid or against Atleti, how many goals are we going to concede, Tom? That's the question, right?
And there's the thing that it's easy. Nothing is really easy in football. It looks easy for us, like from the couch, look at the screen. How has he missed that? How has he not tracked back? How has he not seen that coming? It's very difficult on the pitch, obviously. But yes, it seems like the opposition have found a formula that can be replicated week in, week out. There's, again, this compilation on Twitter that shows all the goals that we conceded. They're all the same goals. Yes, we all know that. But to your point, maybe defensively, we don't have to be this team that compresses the pitch every time, the team that pushes up every time. Because not every team on the other side will have the tools to breach our lower block. In attack is a bit more tricky because most teams will sit back. They will invite us forward, and we will want to go up and pin them down. In that case, you can't lose the highline. The highline is a necessity in possession because that's the way we play. That's where our strengths lie. Defensively, however, there can be found some middle ground, I think. Now, it's up to Flick to decide, okay, in a perfect scenario where my players are robots, they can do this every week, but they're obviously not. So maybe there is some changes that I can make and actually not lose the identity of Barca.
There is something there to think about. It doesn't need to be my way or the highway because it's a 50-game or 60-game season. Expecting your 12 top players or 11 top players to go at that pace, 60 games in and out, along with international friendlies, what have you, is challenging.
It is.
And we are seeing that. We don't have the depth that we need, and we knew that, right? So I think there's something that needs to happen. I'll be very curious to see what, and we are hearing about, he wants to use Rashford as a 9, as a center. But I don't think that solves the problem. That maybe solves some of the scoring issues or what have you, but I don't think we have a scoring problem. We create enough chances. Goals will happen. I do think that there is some level of disjoint activity between our defense and our midfield. And the fact that we're not going to get some of the players back for a long time. And I think there are some changes that are required there.
Oh, it's already getting difficult because the players are saying, okay, even the healthy ones are saying, okay, we're knackered. We have played 7 games in 21 days. And it's not just that, it's the mental fatigue as well and the physical fatigue, because the system just requires you to be at your peak, at your best, at your 100% every single moment of the game. Not just every game, but every moment in every game, because the system just works that way. But anyway, Dev, I think we can talk about this all day and all night if necessary. But let's move to the next topic, which is Barca going to the States. Yeah, Barca going to America. Barca playing an away game, La Liga away game, mind you, against Villarreal in the United States. And it's official now. We are traveling to the United States. The players themselves have raised some concerns. The fans have raised some concerns. But the club is clear. Laporta is clear. If La Liga wants us to go, we will go, and we are going.
This is the first Spanish La Liga game within the league that has been played outside Europe, and not just Europe. They've gone all the way to Hard Rock Stadium, Miami, Florida. That's where they're going to play. And I don't know, man, this is complicated because I understand the debate. I understand football's a globalized game. You have to go, you get the money, all of that stuff in America. Like a lot of fan base for all these clubs come from America. There's streaming rights, there's streaming money, there is television rights that we get from them. So yes, for people there, this is the only chance of watching their game or their club in person. I get that. That's just not the story. The approval process, UEFA was not ready with it. FIFA was not ready with it. Apparently nobody was ready with it, but somebody gave up permission. How does that even happen?
It's a bit weird, and it doesn't come out of nowhere. I think there's been talk about these things happening. It's not just La Liga. Like, we have the Super Cups being played
in Saudi Arabia.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think football is trying, or at least European football is trying to globalize a little bit, expand. And I get that. But they go where the money is. The money is usually in those two extremes, in Americas and then in the East as well. I think that's where the money is for European football. But obviously the fans are right to be a bit outraged, I would say. Football is a business. It's been a business for a while now. But what makes football special is the heart, the soul, the fans. And in this scenario, who suffers? It's exactly this latter part. It's the heart of football that suffers in a way. And yes, the American fans will get to see Barcelona live in America at their home soil, whatever. But it's just, it feels wrong to me.
If you look at the history of domestic football leagues, they were built on local rivalries, local communities, local supporters who built these clubs up. Now, go to a Real Betis, go to a Ceramica, and go to a Rayo Vallecano, right? And local supporters who will come out passionately to support their club, even though the clubs have never won a silverware in centuries, and probably they'll never win. And still, the support is strong. They enjoy it when these teams defeat Barcelona or Real Madrid or what have you. That is the essence of local leagues. By doing this, you have taken it, because this was the one chance they had to see in the whole year. They had one chance to see Barcelona coming to the stadium to play. You have taken that away. Those 30,000 fans who would have come as season ticket holders to watch that, they have been robbed. Let's be clear, that 50% discount that they're doing, nobody's flying to Miami.
No, I mean, even with free travel and match tickets and discounts, it doesn't make up for it, Dev. Yeah, you have to sacrifice your whole, it's not just a day. Traveling from Europe to America is not an easy thing to do. No, especially when you have work, you have life, you have families. It's just not as easy as La Liga make it out to be. They're like, okay, you get free tickets, off you go. You'll be fine. It's not the same. And I think your point to local things building this, Barca are a team that's based on their members, right? On the fans. We've come from sitting in the stands with our butts hanging behind the stands. That's why we call it coolest, right? So it's all about the fan, and it's about the little fan, the poor fan, the fan that lives for this. And I just don't see it.
There's no right or wrong to it. Who will you say is right or wrong? Javier Tebas went on court and said La Liga has fans, millions of fans over the world. They also have a right to watch the games. Okay, maybe. But this one's a tough one. And it's not so much because of this one game, because what it does is that it creates precedence, which means there'll be somebody else who will want the same thing. Now you will have Bundesliga in Saudi Arabia, or you will have the English Premier League somewhere else. And then it'll be like this. And while, yes, there is a positivity to this, but that is not the history of football. Football is not NFL. So considering that, okay, just because American basketball leagues and pro football leagues do the same thing, we can do the same with football or European soccer, probably is not the right argument, according to me. I'm an individual person, individual fan. I'm not running the club. And even it's not just Villarreal, like Barcelona has over 300 million followers or fans or what have you. So I understand that a lot of these fans are outside. Many of them are in America and they get a chance to watch. So I get it. But I think we can stick to the preseason. You want to do a tournament with the Club World Cup. That's perfect. Do it in America, right? Get all the clubs there, play. Got it. But league games being taken out of league stadiums, home stadiums, that one's difficult for me to take.
It is. And I don't think, no matter how much we talk about the business side of things, about the globalization of football and how this is a necessary step, not just for Barca, but football in general, and it is. There's always going to be that other side, financial side mostly, that makes sense. Makes sense for Barca, even especially in our financial climate where we want all the money that we can get. Obviously, fair play. Laporta is doing what is necessary, again, to sustain the club and to put the club back where it once was. I get that. And sometimes maybe we as fans need to take ourselves out a bit and see it from that perspective, maybe the more objective, more cold, hard analysis point of view. Maybe it does make sense in a world of business. Now, does that world of business need to take over football as much? That's the big question.
Either you say, okay, football's, forget all the leagues and everything and the home advantage, it's a global marketing product and you go with it. Or you preserve some of that, what makes football, right? And you preserve the culture, you preserve the identity. Some things, not everything has to be sold. But anyway, that's our point of view on this one. So Barca is going to the Hard Rock Stadium, and that will be a tough one because they will be flying, I think, for the Super Cup, and then they will fly for this one, and then they will come back, and then there are games. So they will fly a lot.
We have a tired team that's also going to suffer from jet lag. That can only mean great things.
Let's move on to the final topic, which is for today. Obviously, the team is undergoing through some sort of a crisis in injuries, which we have watched. But I think let's pick up on one player who has been concerning even without the injuries, and that's Dani Olmo, right?
Yes.
And we don't have to give context, and we're not picking up on him, or this is not a rant against him or anything like that. He's a great player, and he has, like last year, it was sublime to just watch him. And he unlocked so many difficult situations for us. And this year, it hasn't been the same. He has been injured and what have you. But even with that, I think there is a consistency issue. Also, there is an issue in terms of the team changing a little bit, or the personnel with whom he's used to working. So I think there are challenges out there. But TLDR, 8 matches, 1 goal, 2 assists, now out, not really providing the value that you might want from the only signing you made last year. I think there's a challenge.
No, there's absolutely a challenge. And you mentioned that there's a pattern there. And Dani Olmo is a versatile player, but he's also very versatile when it comes to injuries there. Thigh problems, foot injuries, arm issues, stomach complaints, shoulder problems, and now multiple calf strains as well. That accumulates to 77 games missed, especially for a player that hasn't been brought in to be an occasional presence in Barcelona. No, he's been brought in because we felt, the club felt, that, okay, this is a player that's going to take us to the next level by playing that crucial number 10 role in a Hansi Flick system, which makes it even worse because this position is not exactly that widespread in football anymore. But for Flick, it seems to be key. Yeah, and we have a player there who has the ability, but he has the ability every once in a while when he's fit, and that's not enough, both financially and sports.
I think there are some games that he is switched on. And then there are some games, even when he is fit, that he's not switched on, or you don't feel that he's switched on, right? Now, I don't know what's happened. I'm sitting and watching a game on a television, so what do I know? But it's now he's going to miss Girona. He's going to miss Olympiacos. He's probably going to miss Clásico. We do not have Gavi. And both Frankie and Pedri are like, oh, we are gassed out already, 7 games in the season. So I think now who plays that role? There is no one. Literally, there is no one. So either he plays it, or the only substitute that you have is Fermin. But Fermin and Dani Olmo are not the same players, right?
Not even
Fermin
close.
can, find those spaces. He can make those attacking runs. He's very good in that. But he is not the way that Dani Olmo plays. That is not Fermin. So these are two different players. So even if you put Fermin in, he's not going to be able to do what Dani Olmo can do, but hasn't been able to do for a while. And now the question, Dom, and you watch him a lot more tactically and so on, what do you do? He's got a contract till 2029, and that's a long time. Now he's there, and we're not getting remotely close to what the team would need, especially in the last few games.
First of all, let's start with a positive note. Last season, we have to say, okay, Dani Olmo was a big part of our success. He did score goals, he did provide assists, but even more than that, his role demands a certain type of involvement, right? He needs to be there. Even if he's not scoring goals, he needs to be there to make the runs, to make the association happen between the midfield and the front line. And he needs to be there to recognize that space and be the player that can manipulate the ball when we're facing a tight block, especially, because because no one else does that, right? In that role, the number 10 role. Now, people have been saying, okay, Tony Fernandez, maybe play Rooney at number 10. It's very unlikely that we'll see any of that. So the next likely scenario, to answer your question, again, yes, I will agree with you, is Fermin Lopez. Yes, as much as we would love to see Tony Fernandez there, I don't think it will happen. If Fermin, only way it happens if Fermin is not fit, and even then, I wouldn't put it past Flick to just play Casado, Frenkie, and Pedri in that midfield, and then someone will have to be higher up, probably Pedri, of all of those three players. And that's how Flick will do it. Now, obviously, there is an option to remove that role entirely and say, okay, we're back to a 4-3-3 with two number 8s. Frenkie, you're the deepest player. Casado will support you. Pedri, you're just floating around up and down as you see fit. Maybe that's the way for Flick to go. Now, that would be good on paper, but it would require a shift in the whole system. Now, is Flick ready to abandon his number 10 role that has been crucial since the Bayern days? I'm not sure, Dev.
Yeah, because he's always played. That was Müller, but Müller is a workhorse. You can't compare Müller with Dani Olmo. Just get it out there. But that said, Olmo has a finesse to make it happen. But that said, if you look at his stats this season, they are tough stats to read. He's got 75% pass completion. He only has completed about 1 of every 3 dribbles that he has tried. He has only won 4 out of the 9 or 10 duels that he has done. He's failed to register a single key pass. He has created 0 big chances. And for a player in 10, those are damning stats. As simple as that. If you are the chief creator, that's your role as that 10 in that 10 position for the team, then you can't carry these stats because the team is depending on you to unlock this challenge, unlock the problem areas with your gameplay. And that hasn't happened with Dani Olmo for now. Now he will be injured. I don't know who's going to replace him. Also, his ability to play with Lewandowski was much better, but Lewandowski is not starting this season. So it's Ferran. Him and Ferran don't really gel together. Now Flick is saying he's going to get Marcus Rashford in the middle. I don't know how that's going to go out. Even if you want to solve Dani Olmo, how do you solve Dani Olmo?
You saw him start by just making him fit, and that's easier said than done. We somehow did with Pedri, and there was some talks that Olmo was going to get put on the same regimen as Pedri was back then, and maybe there's some truth to it. I don't know, but it doesn't seem to be working just yet. Even if he is on that, but if you put this in some sort of financial context, there. So we paid 60 million to RB Leipzig for Dani Olmo in August 24, right? That's 55 million guaranteed plus 5 million add-ons. A 6-year contract worth approximately 9.38 million per year. So if we go down that whole contract, Dani Olmo
120 million.
150 million approximately.
He's upset, and rightfully, and we believe that he's upset. And every player goes through this. Probably he feels the same thing, and maybe he's going through a bad patch. But it's just one of those things. Like Barca is not in a condition right now where they can afford it. If an Olmo fails, then part of the structure breaks, and then you're losing games. And that is also something that Barca can't afford consistently, given their financial situation. I genuinely hope that Flick can find out a solution for him, either tactically or in the winter transfer window, or something whereby we give him the support that he requires to become successful. Because when he is successful, he's very good. And we've seen that last year. Really be magical. And that can massively help the team.
Yeah, it can. He's got the talent. We know that he's got the ability. It's all about consistency and how to implement and put that talent into action. But anyway, guys, I think that wraps up the show today. So we had the financial situation, which is looking good. That was a big positive story today. Barca are on the way to financial recovery. And it starts with that little 2 million of income that we managed to generate. It's a start. It's a small start, but we'll take it.
Sevilla and PSG both showed the vulnerabilities. Rayo showed it as well. There is a problem, right? You can't just mask it. You got to fix this if you are serious about the season. So I think it has given Flick time, this international break, to think through. We'll be very interested to see how he manages it. We talked about Miami, the commercial expansion. We understand the good side of it, but somehow, somewhere, it does feel wrong that they should have being played at the Ceramic.
Soul versus money is a big debate in football. And lastly, but not least, we talked individually about performance, which is Dani Olmo. Is this becoming a problem for Barcelona?
Interesting times coming up. We've got Champions League, 21st, Real Madrid, 26th, and then Girona on the 18th. 3 games can define our season. If we don't do well, alarm bells will ring. Can Flick solve the defensive fragility? Can Olmo prove that he's worth the investment? Can Barcelona compete for titles? Can they bring back from the slump and put on a really good display with Olympiacos, with Madrid, and with Girona? That will be the defining stories of the next few weeks. Join us, because we will be there for every single game and we will be covering that. We'll also be writing all the previews and so on and so forth. But till then, stay safe, take care, and be style Barca.